What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. Who is more likely to win the Western Conference, Luka Doncic or Kevin Durant?
I'm going to say Kevin Durant, and I really like the Dallas Mavericks, guys. The Dallas Mavericks are one of my favorite teams to watch simply because they have Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. They are awesome when they are on, but wow, are they ugly when they are bad, man. The Mavs frustrate me beyond belief in their bad games when it's the Grant Williams show, when it's the role players suck on both of these teams, is what I'm getting at. Both the role players just completely blow, and I don't have any confidence in them to do anything. Phoenix just has more top star power, and I can imagine KD and Beal and Book going crazy. They just have more top guys. Like, that really is the sole difference for me. I can imagine Luka and Kyrie getting hot, but I cannot imagine the role players playing beyond their means. The Mavs are just too far away. Like, if you're giving Grant Williams big minutes, man, I'm sorry, dude. Your team's not doing anything. You're relying on Josh Green and the boys, and there's not enough there. You need Dante Exum. You need Derek Jones. I'm sorry. And the Suns role players aren't that great either, because the Suns still have their fatal flaws. The reliance on pull-up jump shooting. I think Nurkic, man, Carson, you were right, dude. I was so wrong. Dude, I tried to go to battle for Nurk, bro. I tried to go to battle for Nurk, and I can't do it anymore, dude. He flips his hips, and that man is running in cement back to the hoop. He is just immobile. So, I'm not confident in either of these teams, but to me, the Mavs just don't have that third guy, and the Suns do. Again, that feels like a cop-out answer because the Suns are very flawed. Like, I can see them getting smoked defensively because of Nurkic. I can see them being way too reliant on pull-up jumpers and notching 95 to 100 points in a couple of games because they just go cold from there. They don't get enough pressure on the rim. But they got D-Book and KD. And they got Beal they can rely on in certain games. And they got Grayson Allen, who's been great as a spot-up guy. And I think he could swing a series. And there's just a few more role guys in Phoenix that I trust. So marginally, I would go with the Suns, but I don't have a ton of faith in either of these teams.
I'm with you. The one argument for the Mavs would be that Luka's very likely going to be the best player on the floor in a theoretical matchup between these two, or he's just the best player between these two teams. And in playoff settings has been monumentally great, has taken his unbelievable regular season level and then gone up another level. Part of that may be just from insane pull-up shooting runs, but there is the physical imposition. He gets where he wants on the floor. He's one of the three best playmakers in the league. And so single-handedly, he can carry you to some pretty special stuff. But it is different when you're talking about a team that has two top 10 players, in my opinion, in KD and Book, both of whom can absolutely light you on fire. Kyrie is still an unbelievable offensive player, but I think that there's a level of separation between those guys and him. And then it is the third dynamic creator off the dribble, the third big-time shot maker, the third guy who can pressure a defense and also play make in Bradley Beal, who doesn't exist for the Mavs. The Suns just have more overwhelming offensive strengths. They do have issues. Logan, you mentioned the lack of rim pressure, settling for mid-range jumpers, but they have just the personnel advantages and the spot-up shooting with Grayson Allen and Eric Gordon, guys who have had really, really good pure shooting seasons. And then if you look at the other side of the ball, it's not exactly a beauty pageant. Like, the Suns are going to be okay defensively, though, and the Mavs have just been bad. The Mavs are an awful rebounding team. The Suns have been quite a good rebounding team. I just think they are the better all-around basketball team, but I don't think it's likely that either of these teams make a deep run because primarily of my concerns on the defense side of the ball and then because of some little things offensively.
Yeah, it's funny. If you look at the stats, it's pretty clearly Phoenix, just based on the stats. And I want to dive into this a little bit. Since Dallas started 8-2, they're 18-20 in their last 38 games. In that span, that's been the 19th best record in the league, 17th in offense, 23rd in defense, 26th in defensive rebounding. They've had a lot of injuries. I want to make sure that that's clear. They've had 14 different players start games for them this season. But when Luka and Kyrie both play, they're 12-10, which is pretty mediocre. On the Suns front, Bradley Beal has played in 18 straight games. The Suns are 13-5 in those 18 games, which is the fourth best record in the league. They have the third best offense in the league over that span, 14th in defense, 21st in defensive rebounding. Not good, but better than Dallas has been. So the standings and some of the numbers very clearly point the Mavs and Suns as very different teams. But it does get complicated when you start to look at the playoff setting, because I agree. I put it in my notes. I think Luka is the best player on either team. I think he's a devastating playoff player with the unique capability to strangle the pace, to make opposing stars lose confidence, he has uniquely different from Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. He has the ability to really physically impose his will on an NBA playoff game. I think all of that is vitally important. And so this is where I get into the kind of playoff setting. And I want to pitch this back to you guys for a second. So if we agree that the core five for Phoenix is going to be matchup dependent, but it's going to probably be Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Grayson Allen, and Eric Gordon, with probably Nurkic in for Eric Gordon against teams that have bigger centers, and then they'll probably go small against other teams. The core five for Dallas, we're probably getting Derek Lively and Grant Williams in that 4-5 spot, right? Then it's probably going to be one of either Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, or Derek Jones Jr. in that 3 spot, depending on, again, what the matchup is. This year, they've leaned a lot on Tim Hardaway Jr. in clutch time, which leads me to believe that they'd probably go that direction. I'd probably go with Josh Green or Derek Jones Jr. if it was my decision, but it's going to be one of those guys. And then it's Kyrie and Luka. And when you really get down to it and you scale minutes up and you lean heavily on those groups, and we acknowledge that there's a diminishing return with a third star on the floor that's a ball handler and kind of like a heavy ball handling type of system, let's pitch it back to you guys. We'll start with you, Carson. When you really dig into those 5 guys, which of those 2 lineup groupings do you think has more capability of beating one of the higher level playoff teams in the Western Conference?
It's an interesting question because in some ways that Mavs lineup checks more different boxes in that you still have your 2 shot creators, but then on the wings, you have a bit more physicality at the very least. You have your hyper athletic big who can impact the game more defensively and as a rim finisher than old Nurk, who oftentimes look like he's stuck in cement, as Logan mentions. So from that perspective, it's interesting because you think if the Suns are going to get kind of bullied, no matter how good they are offensively, can they get enough stops against another great team? And maybe the formula is, and again, both these teams are flawed defensively, but it does feel like in terms of the physicality arena, the Mavs match up a little bit better. Maybe that's their advantage, and then Luka goes nuclear. But to me, the principle is the same. I just think that's a more skilled offensive lineup for the Suns. There's more ball handling. There's more dynamic shooting overall. Neither of these teams are going to win a series on the back of their defense. So I would take the team that I think has the better path to elite offense.
I would take Phoenix for 2 reasons. One, if the Mavericks are forced to play the Michelin Man, Grant Williams, they are doomed.
Oh my God.
Done. They're done for. 2,
that's Batman, bro. Put some respect on Batman.
Dude, Logan has just been just straight slander in this episode.
He hates Grant Williams.
Grant Williams is such a bozo, man. All right. The second reason, I know that in theory, Dallas has the personnel to be a good I get what you guys are saying with Grant's a little bit of a stockier 4, should be able to match up physically well. Derek Jones Jr. has bounce. Derek Lively is a great athlete. I've seen 2 really bad games, and I don't know if there were injuries in these games, but there's 2 games to me from Dallas that stick out like sore thumbs. The one where Luka went crazy against Atlanta, and Atlanta kept pace that entire game. And then the other game that I point to is when Dallas played Phoenix. Man, I was talking trash to all of my friends who were Phoenix fans. I was like, oh, dude, Luka owns your poverty franchise. You guys stink. And then the Suns literally just came back and blew the Mavericks out. Like, you can have your qualms about the Suns' defense. I don't think Dallas's defense is in a different enough tier. I don't think their athletic advantages are enough to really make a meaningful difference to me. I think they're wet paper bag defenses, man. You tear right through them.
And they're slower on the perimeter, Dallas. They may be stronger, but they're slower.
They are. I'm gonna take Luka and the Mavs. I think let's use this as an example. I don't think either team has really any chance to beat Denver, but let's look at like a Clippers matchup. Like the Clippers would just play Suns basketball and do it better and beat them. I could see Luka strangling the pace, playing them into their worst tendencies, physically imposing his will on the game, picking on matchups. Like I don't think either of these teams are that good, or that either of them really have that type of, I should say, not they both have championship potential, but like I mean like real like like substantial championship potential. But if I had to pick one guy to notch an upset in a later round and maybe just sneak his way in, I'm going to take Luka in that group. I think a lot of people are off of his scent after last year's missing the playoffs, and I think I'm on the fence between the two, and given that circumstance, I'm going to lean towards Luka.